Let's kind of review that for a minute. What we're talking about, and we've talked about it before, is the circular flow. The circular flow of economic activity. We have households, we have businesses, and there is a flow of money going on between them. Businesses pay household and wages. Households give businesses money. We call it consumption spending. And as long as that circular flow is strong, there's plenty of jobs, businesses are producing plenty of toys, we're buying them, and life is good. And then we asked a couple of questions. We said, what about if you got $100 in wages, but you saved $5 of it? That means you only spent $95 in consumption. What's that going to do to the circular flow? It's like letting the air out of a tire. It starts to slow down. Well, what's the solution to that? Do you remember the classical argument about how that problem is solved?
Borrowing.
Good. There's an intermediary here, the financial industry, we'll call banks in a generic term, that you and I put our savings into the bank, and the bank accumulates this money and says, they're not asking for it back very quickly, and it's just sitting in the vault. What can we do with it? And the answer is loan it out. And so the solution was you had money that was loaned out, but we called that a particular term. We called it investment spending. Meaning businesses, for the most part, consumer loans too, but businesses borrowed the money and injected the money back into the system. So this was an injection. Let's change the color on that. In the terminology of the chapter, this was an injection of money back into the system, and the savings was a leakage of money out of the system or the circular flow. Is that making sense so far? Does that jive with kind of the stuff the book was saying? Okay. Now, the question was raised, what if people saved $5, but businesses only wanted to borrow $3? You'd still have more of a leakage than you had an injection. The system would slow down. What was going to happen? How was the system going to adjust to that? This is the classical argument. You're a bank.
Less demand.
Say again?
Less demand.
How?
Less aggregate demand.
Well, this will result in a decrease in aggregate demand. How do we fix that? How is that really not going to happen? How is it going to fix itself?
Interest rates.
Interest rates, flexible interest rates. You're a bank, be the banker for a minute. You got all this money coming in and nobody's wanting to borrow all of it. What do?
Lower interest rate.
You reduce interest rates. That way more people want to borrow money, right? And what about the savers? They want to save less because they're not making as high an interest rate. And so there's less saving and more borrowing, and bingo, they balance each other out. Savings would equal investment. Let's put it the way we did before. Savings will equal investment because of flexible interest rates. You okay with that? And sometimes you'll see a test question kind of along those lines. So imagine a test question like this. How will the system respond so that savings equals investment or injections equal leakages? How will the system respond if the business community gets very euphoric and optimistic and starts borrowing more money? What will happen in the system? Businesses want to borrow more money. What happens down there? You're the banker. You got $5 coming in, you're loaning $5 out. Now the banks want to borrow $8. You ain't got $8, do you?
You raise the interest rate.
You raise the interest rate, and what does that do?
Inflation. causes people to save.
It induces more savings because there's more interest to be earned, and it slows down that increase in borrowing because with a higher rate, they don't want to borrow 8, maybe they want to borrow 7. So they borrow not quite 8, and they save more than 5, and they move back towards that equilibrium. And so the system fixes itself, no problem.
How do imports and exports play into that?
Let's add, before we go there, let's add first government. How does government figure into the circular flow of economic activity? Well, easy enough, we put it right here in the middle. We say there's government, and that means state, local, and federal. And they give money to businesses and they take money from businesses. How do they give money to businesses? How do governments give businesses money?
By taxes.
No, give it to them.
Subsidies? Yes. Bailouts?
Hey, yo, I need a road built over here. Who wants to build it?
Contracts.
Contract out, okay? We need to buy more tanks for the military. Who makes tanks? Chrysler makes tanks. Yeah, but make us some tanks. Money going out and money coming in because the second largest tax collection, third largest tax collection is corporate profits tax, income tax. So you got money going in and out to businesses. How about households? How does money go back and forth to and from government and households?
Taxes.
Taxes, where we pay the government. How does money come to households?
Tax return?
Say again?
Tax returns?
Well, that's money we've already paid in, we're just getting back.
Jobs created by the government?
Huh?
Jobs created by the
What kind of jobs created by government?
public sector?
Housing.
All kind of public sector jobs, about 1 job in every 6 in this country. Whether it's me teaching, or it's the garbage man picking up your garbage, or the cop out there directing traffic or giving you a ticket, right? That's money going back into the economy. So think about that for a minute now. 1 job, more or less, 1 job in every 6 is government related. So if you came out and you said, we need to shrink the government, it's too damn big, what's that going to do to your economy? At least in the short run.
Sorry.
Huh?
Sorry.
Unemployment.
I didn't hear you.
No, I wanted you to.
Say it again. If we say we're going to decrease the size of government, federal, state, local, we're going to make them all smaller because they're too big, they're too intrusive, and they take too much tax money from us. And we shrink them.
Unemployment rate.
The unemployment rate's going up.
Generally, the government has the biggest wallet, therefore they make the best contracts, like largest contracts.
The largest contracts. So a lot of large government contractors, private businesses are going to be going, whoa, wait a damn minute. You gave me a contract for 9 million hammers, remember? What do you mean you're canceling that? If you go to a place like Gainesville, are there a lot of government employees in Gainesville? Think about it. Think about the University of Florida, the Veterans Administration Hospital, all of the Shands hospitals, Santa Fe, the Department of Agriculture has substantial offices here.
Department of Transportation.
Department of Transportation, all the city. If you did that in Gainesville and 20% of those people lost their jobs, how would business be for you down there running Dragonfly restaurant downtown selling sushi? You'd have fewer customers. And so would every other business in town. Okay, so now you've shrunk government, and you can say we don't need to be paying so much taxes. But what's going to happen to all those people who became unemployed?
You're going to collect welfare.
Well, in the short run, they're going to file for unemployment, et cetera. In the long run, they're going to try to find some way to go back into the economy, but have they got the skills that is going to be in demand in the economy? We don't know. And my point is, it may be a good thing in the long run to decrease the scope of government and make smaller government so that you and I have more taxes to spend. We don't have to pay so much taxes. Maybe that would be good. But in the short run, it's going to be very painful. There are going to be a lot of people, government employees, who are going to be unemployed and not spending money in your business and not paying taxes to the government, but drawing unemployment or other welfare-related safety net expenditures. So maybe by seeing this, that becomes a little more clear when you think about this circular flow. Okay? We okay with this so far? Oh, exports. You can think of exports as kind of, I need another color. Those never work. Think of exports out here as being our foreign trading partners, the foreign sector. Good old technology. The foreign sector. Just like everybody else, they have money going in and money going out. Some from government, some from businesses, and some with households. When you and I buy a TV made in Korea, that's money going out. We sell a lot of stuff overseas too. And to the extent that we export, we bring money into our country. And so we're looking, and this is what we're doing particularly with the Keynesian model. Remember that CIG and X? Consumption spending, investment spending, government spending, and net exports. That's the measure of just how much pressure or power there is in that circular flow. Question?
What are the main things that we export?
The big things these days are not products, they're services. We do, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. We have a lot of consulting expertise that's sold overseas, such as that. Donald Trump was upset the other day and was railing about how we basically just send wheat over to China and how they're taking advantage of us because we keep buying so much stuff from them and they buy almost nothing from us. Take a look at wheat exports in the United States. 0.5% of our total exports is wheat. It's almost insignificant. So there you have lots of talk, but nothing to say. Okay? Aircraft. We do a pretty good job exporting aircraft, Boeing, the jets and stuff. I would challenge you between now and next class, if you have time, look up and see what the 5 major exports of the United States are to our trading partners. And who is our biggest trading partner? Who do we trade with the most?
China.
And the top 5. Find the top 5. There's just been a recent change in that. See if you can find it. Questions?
Yeah, like what if you're producing, if a business is producing outside a country, would it be considered imports?
It's a messy, messy definition. It's why we use the term today, gross domestic product. That's a measure of what we produce in this country. We used to measure gross national product, which accounted the production of an American company in Germany. We don't count that anymore. So when a company is producing overseas, that's not part of our GDP.
Shouldn't it be regulated? Like if you're producing overseas here, you would be allowed to sell the country where you're producing.
That depends on the various trade agreements that are negotiated. And sometimes we've penalized ourselves. Sometimes there's a tremendous argument out there today about American businesses who are closing their headquarters in the United States and becoming a Dutch company or a German company because the taxes are lower. It's the same company, they got the same facilities here, but now they declare their profits as a different company overseas and they don't pay any American taxes.
Shouldn't that be penalized?
Well, there's a lot of argument afoot that yes, it should be penalized, but there's a lot of money flowing from businesses into politics trying to keep that from happening. You can imagine what Bernie Sanders has to say about that.
What does Trump say about that?
I don't know what Trump says. I couldn't cite him exactly. Yes, sir.
Oh, Trump says the lower the corporate tax, and like a bunch of these other countries that have like low corporate taxes, it actually, and the reason why they're there is because, I mean, obviously it's a lower corporate tax, and I mean, that's going to encourage business. That's why I think it's funny when like Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders says jack up the corporate tax. That's just going to drive people farther away from here, because why are they going to want to pay that corporate tax when they can go to a country?
It's going to be a very strong reason not to locate in the United States and therefore to move some jobs at least abroad.
Yeah, that's why Trump like says, or Trump and Rubio, I think Rubio said too, is lower the corporate tax. It will bring companies back to the United States.
I have a little bit of heartburn about that because every time the Republicans have told us to lower taxes, it'll be good for us. It hasn't worked. We did it with personal income taxes. We're talking about doing it with corporate income taxes. Right, if you look at corporations in America today, they're paying a smaller percentage of total taxes collected than they have in 50 years. Their tax burden, while the rate may be high, take a look at how many American companies pay no income tax at all, just through the loopholes.
If you go look like at a country, I know Monaco's really small, but Monaco has a 0% income tax
Right.
for their citizens.
Right.
And they have they have virtually no corporate income tax either.
Mhm.
And yet, business is always booming
Mhm.
because they make it easy to do business. In the
Oh,
United
absolutely.
States, we make it really complicated.
I would say relatively complicated, much more complicated for some, but one of the things we consistently overlook is the advantage businesses get from being able to sell in this country. Okay? And so if we say you can sell all you want in this country, no restrictions, et cetera, and you can stay abroad and not pay any income taxes, we're screwing ourselves. We're not taking our position as a big buyer to compensate against their position as a big seller. So personally, I don't think our corporate tax rate is too high.
Because Trump has said like lower it and then put it or higher tax on all imports, which will force them to come back.
He's going right back to 1932. You read about it in this class, remember? It's called the Smoot-Hawley tariffs. When you start taxing your trading partners, what do they do in return? They start taxing you. Nobody wins. That's a zero-sum game. So I think Trump is absolutely wrong on that. I think we'll wind up paying dearly for that kind of attitude.
And then the other question is honestly, how many Americans want to do some of these manufacturing jobs? And the reason why they've left is because why am I going to pay someone
I think that's a beautiful question, and we
14
see
an hour
it.
to make a shirt?
Well, we have good-paying manufacturing jobs in this country, and they can't find enough people to work for them. And we're talking jobs that are paying you $60,000, $70,000 a year, because so much of young America equates manufacturing job with blue-collar, production line, boring labor. I don't do that. I'm going to college.
Yeah.
If we had the jobs coming back here that paid it, you'd find a lot of folks who don't want to go to college anyway finding a gainful employment in that. And we're seeing some slight increase in that, not nearly enough. What we need is a more educated workforce that produces with processes that require more education. It's done in an American company, and they're seeing it already. They can't find that overseas. They cannot find an educated workforce overseas if they have a fairly advanced production process.
Is that why like countries like Germany are begging for Americans to come over?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think our gain is in getting in a trading war with anybody. It's in making ourselves more productive. Now, you want to talk tax breaks to corporations for building those kind of production processes, for training those kind of workforces? I'm right there with you. Lower taxes for that in a heartbeat. Yeah. So we'll see. Other comments, other questions? Okay, I can erase.
Can you talk about the multiplier process?
Perfect, you're reading my mind. You're reading my mind. This is one of the things I enjoy explaining, just because I have a perverse sense of humor. Suppose the government sent Strickland $100 and said, teach a course. What does Strickland do with that $100? Invest? You know me. What do you really think I'm going to do?
Go buy a cigar.
Go buy a cigar.
Fishing and beer.
Yeah, have a rum drink on the beach. We got it, we're talking. Basically, say again?
Save 20%.
Yeah, basically in economics, we say you either save it or you consume it. But whatever, those have to add up to 100% of your income. Your consumption, let's say, is 90%. That means Strickland takes $90 and goes out and buys stuff, and by definition, he puts $10 into some kind of investment or savings account or something like that. Okay? This is my arbitrary number. That real number for America as a whole is probably close to 0.96, 0.95, but it's easier to use 0.90 for right now. This is called the marginal propensity to consume. the MPC. And it is the keystone element in understanding Keynesian economics. It's the absolute essential keystone that without this you can't make much sense out of Keynesian economics. If the MPC is 0.90, by definition, the marginal propensity to save is the other part of 100%. Okay so far? Well, what do you suppose Strickland's going to spend that $90 on? Well, you've not been in Gainesville as long as I have. But perhaps you may have heard of a place down the interstate called Cafe Risque. You know what Cafe Risque is?
So wonderful.
That's where you have dancers dancing around up on the stage about half nude, and you can buy breakfast or supper and, relax, have a cold with you. Now, I just want you to put it in your mind that old Strickland is single, because if he's married, he's a stupid idiot. Gets his $90, changes it all into $1 bills, right? Heads down to Cafe Risque, 90 $1 bills. And what's the name of the dancer I meet down there? Give me a name.
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon. How did you come up with that?
He's been there before.
Yeah, we know Cinnamon. And so I'm taking $1 bills and sticking them in the elastic of her hose or whatever she's wearing, right? And I kill the evening, or however long it takes, and I spent $90 giving it to Cinnamon. You with me so far? Some of you are seeing that image, I can tell. My question is, what does Cinnamon do with the $90?
Oh, well, she spends all night.
No, this is an average. We have to all play by this, okay? So how much of it does Cinnamon spend?
81.
90% of $90. She spends $81 and saves $9, okay? We okay so far? What does she spend it on?
Rent?
Rent? I was thinking she went down
Lingerie.
lingerie. Lingerie's got professional, tax-deductible expense, professional dress, right? If she spends that at the lingerie shop, what does a lingerie shop do with that money?
They buy more.
Invest.
They spend 90% of it and save 10% of it. So they save $8.10 and they spend $72.90. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? First, the government spent $100. Then Strickland spent $90. Then Cinnamon spent $81. And then, give me a name for the lingerie shop owner. It's got to be French. Genevieve.
There you go.
Good. Genevieve spends $81. What's going on here? The government put $100 into the economy and triggered a lot more spending than that. You see that? The respending of that money, and ever smaller amounts, the respending of that money is the multiplier effect. You with that? How much would this all add up to if you kept following this as it got down closer and closer to zero? To do that, we do a little kind of quick and dirty math. And so we say for the multiplier, the complete multiplier effect, we're going to develop this little number called K. K is the multiplier. And K is equal to 1 divided by 1 minus that MPC, that 0.90. Remember that? So we're going to make us up a table here for a minute. I'll tell you the MPC. You tell me K. And let's start off with 0.90. If the MPC is 0.90, what's the value of K here? 10? Is that right? This would be 1 divided by 1 minus 0.90. which is the same as 1 over 0.10, which is like 10 cents into a dollar. You with that? Okay, 10. Okay so far? Well, to stop there just for a minute, our equation is this. The change in total spending, I'm going to call that delta Y, or delta AD if you want. The change, triangle means change, right? Change in total spending is the change in government spending, that $100 that went into this system the first time, times K. That'll give you the value of all of this spending added up as it approaches zero. So the original $100 by government, given an MPC of 0.90, would change total spending by $1,000. Go ahead.
What is that called exactly? What's that?
What is what?
What's that formula called?
This is just the multiplier effect numerically.
Okay.
Yeah. That is the multiplier is K. The multiplier effect is the change in total spending. Okay so far? So if the government sent Strickland $100 and the MPC was 0.90, total spending could change up to $1,000. What would that do to the economy? It'd be a hell of a lot bigger impact than just that $100. It's got a huge impact. Okay so far? Let's try a couple of other numbers. What if the MPC were 0.80? You think the multiplier is going to be bigger or smaller? Is it bigger? Figure it out. Do this. Good. 1 over 1 minus 0.80 is 1 over 0.20. 20 cents into a dollar goes 5 times. Now think about that for a minute. If we save, how much am I saving? If the MPC is 0.80, how much am I saving? 20%. If I save a lot of my money, I don't spend it, you don't have that big a multiplier effect. Okay so far? So that $100 from the government would only translate into $500 more spending, not $1,000, because people are saving a lot of their money. Let's try an easy one. 0.50. What's the multiplier? 2. We're saving so much of our money, 50% of it, we're not spending very much at all. You only get a 2 multiplier. The $100 from government translates into $200 into the economy. You okay with that? Try this one. 0.95. What's my multiplier now? 20. There's a pattern there that as soon as you see it, it's pretty easy. This would be 1 minus 0.95, which is 1 over 0.05. That's like a nickel into a dollar. It goes 20 times. You okay with it? That's because I'm only saving 5 cents out of every dollar extra that I make. But I'm spending the hell out of the rest of it, and everybody else is too. And so that original $100 from the government translates into $2,000 more total spending. That could create a lot of jobs. Try this one. 0.96, what's the multiplier? 25, right? 1 over 0.04, 0.96 over here. 4 into 100 goes 25 times. What's the multiplier if the MPC is 0.98?
50.
You see that it's 50? 1 over 1 minus 0.98. 1 over 0.02. How many times does 2 go into 100 or 2 cents into a dollar? 50 times. So that $100 that Strickland got, what happened? It blew up into $5,000 more spending in the economy. You beginning to see what's happening here? Question?
What if you aren't given the NPC?
Then it's a wild guess.
Okay, so you have to have.
Yeah, you'll have to have it in a problem, or you'll have to have enough information to solve it.
Determine what
Yeah.
the NPC is first.
And we collect this kind of information in our national data all the time. And so today the MPC is closer to about 0.96, maybe 0.95. We have a fairly large multiplier effect back here. But remember what we did with the classical? We said, well, how long does that take? Well, we got to ask the same question here. How long does it take till all of that spending accumulates up and, really helps the economy? And the answer is, we don't know, but it doesn't happen overnight. And so what we typically do is we talk about a multiplier effect, even given a 0.96 MPC. We talk about a multiplier effect, not of 25, but closer to 2 or 3. Because that's the short run effect, and that's what we're really concerned with. But even a 2 or 3 multiplier still gives you a lot more stimulus to the economy. You see that? So when the government comes in and says, boy, we got a lot of high unemployment, a lot of people ain't working, we need to help them out, and they put $1 billion into the economy. But if you've got a multiplier of 3, that's a $3 billion shot in the arm. You okay with that? That's the multiplier effect. Money gets respent. The less we save, the more it gets respent. This is key when we talk about fiscal policy and stimulating the economy. Okay, so far, questions? Yes, ma'am.
I might be thinking way out of line with
That's
all this,
okay, we do
but
that in economics.
What happens when debt gets involved?
I'm not sure how you mean it.
Like with government spending, for example, if there's a deficit or if, I don't,
See, remember the $100 that Uncle Sam sent Strickland? Doesn't matter where they got it. They could have borrowed it, they could have stole it, which a lot of people say that's what taxes is.
okay.
We still get this huge spending effect.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing, to conceptualize, is even if they raise taxes and put that money into circulation, you're still going to have a multiplier effect from the extra spending. You're also going to have a negative multiplier effect on the taxes.
That's kind of what I was wondering, is if there could be a negative.
Well, let's just stay with spending. What if instead of Uncle giving me $100, Uncle reduced their spending by $100? They took my contract for teaching and said, I get $100 left. What would I do? How would I come up with that extra $100 that I don't have anymore? I would use the same percentage, and I would take $10 out of my savings, and I would cut my own spending by $90, and I'd say, here's your damn $100. You see that? Now, I'm no longer going down every week and spending $90 at the Cafe Risque, am I? How's life for Cinnamon? Same idea. She's got 81 single dollar bills less than she used to. So she's not spending down at the whatever lingerie shop or the grocery store or rent or anything else. So it works forward to stimulate. It also works in reverse to retard or dampen down the economy. Taxes do the same thing, and we'll get into them next time. But basically, if they give me a tax cut, I save some of it, I spend some of it. If they raise my taxes, I cut down some of my spending and I cut down some of my savings to pay for it. And it still has a negative effect and a multiplied effect on the economy. So good insight. Taxes work the same way.